Hey, Marty here. Thank you so much for letting me share the STRUM method with you a couple of days ago. I'm so excited to show you these 5 basic principles that allow me to simply pick up the guitar and learn any song immediately, or jam by myself or with another guitarist with no stress. Again, I realized it all boils down to just 5 key concepts that allows us guitarists to do just that. A few days ago, I started to describe our STRUM method to you as an acronym that represents the 5 essential tools you need to call yourself a guitarist. After teaching hundreds of students using my 6-month complete course, I realized all of my videos, lessons, and tips all fall into these 5 categories. After I started grouping my lessons into these categories, even my struggling students finally got it. So let's take a minute for me to dive into these essential areas to see if you can begin to have your aha moment. If you recall, the S in STRUM stands for Seeing Fretboard Patterns. You may already know this, but as complicated as the fretboard may seem, there are only 12 notes. That's it. It's only 12 and it repeats over and over again. So taking our 6th string played openly is an E note, we count up 12 frets. And we arrive back to that E note once again, and it starts all over. Now, you may know also about relative tuning, which means the 5th fret of one string becomes the same note value of the next string played openly. So the 5th fret of the 6th string, an A note, becomes the same note as the 5th string played openly, also an A. There is an exception with the 3rd to the 2nd string, where the 3rd string on the 4th fret becomes the 2nd string's note value. But once you realize this, you've learned the next important pattern along the fretboard, and that is octaves, which means going from one E to the next E. After quickly seeing these few patterns, you could probably imagine now why there are so many different places along the fretboard to play the same chords. So here's an A, here's the next A, here's the next A, and the next A, and I could go on and on. In the STRUM method, we go over all the different patterns so you won't be intimidated by how to invert chords to different parts of the neck. Next up in our method is the T, which stands for transitioning smoothly. You may recall I mentioned in the last video that I have a simple technique called the 3 A's of transitioning. This stands for anchoring, anticipating, and allowing. Now let me explain. Anchoring is when we use one finger in a chord as our anchor, not lifting it up when transitioning to the next chord, but firmly keeping it planted while moving to the next chord as it acts as an anchor, allowing us to lift the other fingers and move around it. Here's an example. From a D chord, you can notice my 3rd finger, my ring finger, is the same location when I also play a G chord. So if I was moving from a D to a G, we plant that ring finger, pick up the others, and find their placement around that anchor. It's as simple as that. Our next A in the 3 A's of transitioning is anticipating. One common mistake beginning guitar players make is concentrating so hard on the current chord to make it sound right, they don't think about the next chord until it's too late. Remember, when practicing transitions, we are striving to keep in time or keep in rhythm. And so it is critical to anticipate what chord is coming next so that our minds can already be prepping for where our fingers are going to move. So again, with the D chord, if I'm strumming each chord 4 times, on the 2nd strum, I'm anticipating that G chord structure and where I will be moving my fingers. That way, during the middle of the 4th strum, I'm already transitioning to that next chord before the downbeat on the G chord. Again, simple as that. The final A in our 3 A's technique for transitioning stands for allowing. This is allowing yourself some grace if your chords don't sound perfect while practicing your transitions. Another common mistake beginning guitar players make is getting hung up on the way chords sound while practicing transitions. These are 2 different practice sessions. Practice your chords, great. Make sure all the notes are clear, not muted. But when you are practicing connecting these chords, you must do your best to not allow buzzing or muting of strings to hang you up from getting to that next chord. There will be some buzzing and muting when you start a new chord progression, and that's okay because we are allowing yourself to practice transitions, even if the chord sounds messy. The sound of the chord will clear up in time when your transitions get tighter, which will happen eventually. So there are the 3 A's of transitioning. Next up in our strum method is the R for reading or remembering chord charts, chord tabs, and basic theory. Now, this is often where students get a little frightened because they think they're going to have to start speaking a whole other language. Because make no mistake, learning how to read music theory is a whole language in and of itself. But as guitarists, we don't have to overly complicate it. We just need to know the basics. We need to know how to read chord charts like this one. This is a C major chord. Numbers inside the circles tell us which fingers to use. The little O above that 5th string nut tells us to play that string openly, and the little X tells us to not play that specific string at all when playing this chord. All chord charts look a bit different, but once you know the basics, you can learn how to play any chord immediately. When you look up any song on the internet, it will have chord charts for each chord used during that song. If you don't know how to play a specific chord by memory, well, good thing you know how to read charts, because you can quickly practice it or just remind yourself. Now, the strum method gets a bit more in depth into the various topics regarding theory and reading guitar tabs so that once you know them, you can quickly learn any song you want. Not having to watch some YouTube video of someone telling you where to put your fingers, you could simply look and know for yourself. Prime example of giving a person a fish they eat for a day, but teach someone to fish and they'll eat for a lifetime. Next up in our acronym is U, which stands for Understanding Rhythm and Strumming. Rhythm and strumming go hand in hand. Sure, you can learn how to read strumming patterns, the whole down arrows and up arrows, but without some knowledge on rhythm, how do we really apply it? Similarly, with rhythm, we can possibly understand the difference between rock and reggae, but without knowing some supporting reggae strum patterns, how are we going to make Bob Marley not sound like rock and roll? So using the example of rock and roll versus reggae, let's look at Bob Marley's 3 Little Birds when taking a closer look at our final letter in the strum method, M, which stands for master ear training. Now, when we play the song, we can hear this implied groove to the guitar playing dun chicka dun chicka dun chicka. This rhythm is a reggae rhythm, which accentuates the offbeats or the and of the count. Now, what I mean by that is every song in 4/4 time can be counted 1, 2, 3, 4. Whereas rock accentuates the 1 and the 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Reggae accentuates the and, 1 and 2 and 3 and, or the chicka between the duns, dun chicka dun chicka dun chicka. So when we go to apply a strum pattern to the song, we need to know the rhythmic nature of the offbeats in reggae music, and we need to know this in our strum pattern like this. 3 little birds sit by my doorstep, singing sweet songs, melodies pure and true, singing, this is my message to you. And there's a quick synopsis of the strum method. So you might be asking, why will this work for me when other methods haven't? It's because I'm not giving you the fish. Instead, I'm teaching you how to fish. So instead of telling you how to play a specific song like 3 Little Birds or some solo lead riff, I'm teaching you the tools required for you to be able to play every song ever and become a confident guitar player. In a couple of days, I'll jump into one of my public groups and on the fly, ask someone to throw out an artist and a song title so you could see how quickly I can use the strum method to learn any song instantly, even if I've never even heard it before. Don't believe it? Try to stump me. Reply a comment to this video of a song you're trying to learn right now, and I'll randomly choose a song in a few days to demonstrate how you can use the strum method to quickly learn any song. See you then, Jammer.